It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Marcus Mosier. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosier. And joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. You can also listen to him on the Best Coast Boys podcast. Landon, what's going on, sir?
Not much. My last week in Dallas, I'm enjoying it, savoring family. And speaking of savoring, I always savor our Tuesday questions. I love them. We always get some good ones. We always get to find out what kind of crazy food things you have, like not eating bones and chicken wings.
Again, it's not that I don't like bone-in chicken wings. It's just I prefer boneless. They're both great. I like my nuggets. All right, so let's get to you guys' Twitter questions today before everybody tunes out and stops listening. This question comes from Zach. Should the Cowboys try to sign David DeCastro, or is Connor Williams good enough to compete on the offensive line? So if you haven't heard, it was last Thursday the Steelers cut all-pro guard David DeCastro, who actually made a Pro Bowl in 2020. The belief is that he has to have another ankle surgery that could put him out for 2 to 4 months. However, he's still a fine player when he's healthy. Are you interested in bringing him in at all, Landon?
I don't think so at this point, just simply because, the reasons that you mentioned. I mean, he's possibly being out 2 to 4 months. I mean, if you sign him now, you're signing him to a guaranteed contract as well because of just the way the veteran contracts work. I think beyond the fact that this is probably not the right time to do this, right? Like this is probably a wait and see situation with DeCastro, even if you wanted to sign him. I also can't imagine that DeCastro is such an upgrade all pro bowler, fantastic player. I mean, definitely. I mean, I loved him coming out. He's had a very good career. He's played well for your Pittsburgh Steelers. And so I think he has skins on the wall. There's interest, and I understand the interest in the playing style and his abilities. But I also think that if you look at what he's potentially going to be making coming off an injury, and again, you'd have to really kind of be careful about the timing of when you sign him. And then you compare that to, is he that much better than young Connor Williams, who had a good year last year, is working still on a rookie contract, and you're already kind of extremely over-leveraged on your offensive contracts. I think that sometimes you have to find a way to allow good players on rookie contracts to play simply because of the economics of things. And you're not going to have – it's like, I think Broadus says it, or whomever, you can't have a stake on every play. You just can't have a Pro Bowler everywhere. And you have a very good player who's still on a rookie contract. I know that people are kind of generally sour on Connor Williams, but I think if you go back and watch what he did last year, it was one of the only people that was able to stay healthy throughout most of the year. And it was basically the last man standing for a good portion of the season on the offensive line. I think he's learned a lot, and I'm hoping to see that he's taken that and maybe taken his game a step forward.
I agree with you. I think there's really no reason why, or way I see that DeCastro comes in and takes Connor Williams' job, because number one, he's not ready. And number two, Connor Williams has earned that spot. Like, he played well last year. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. However, I do think there's a scenario that would potentially make some sense. And actually, I saw the Ravens do it just a couple of weeks ago with Jaywan James, the Denver Broncos offensive tackle who tore his Achilles. So basically, they gave James a 2-year deal with a little bit of guaranteed money now, but also they can get out of that contract in 2022. Basically, what they're doing is they're paying for him to rehab this year on their tab. And then if he's healthy and looks good next year, they got him at a really good price. I could potentially see that for the Cowboys. Like if they signed DeCastro to, let's say, a 2-year, $6 million deal, guarantees him some money next year if he's healthy, Connor Williams is a free agent after the year, and then you slide him into that left guard spot. DeCastro is only 31 years old, so he's not super old for a guard. I think that makes some sense, but I'm not sure the Cowboys are the team that would do that. But could you see him eventually signing a deal like that?
Oh yeah, totally. And again, like for a team that maybe isn't, eyeballing their cap as closely as what the Cowboys kind of currently are after the Dak contract, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, especially if you have the cap space. I mean, just to kind of stash a guy like this who, by the end of the year and certainly by next year, could be not only a starter but a plus starter for your team.
Yeah,
it makes sense. I mean, it's a pretty low risk gamble. If
it's
he's
a forward thinking move, right? You've got to be a progressive person to think about this a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, and I think that's what a lot of the smart teams do. They kind of get ahead of the curve a little bit. The Cowboys have done that a little bit too with certain players as well. So but I think for the Cowboys currently right now, they have a lot of money invested in the offensive line as it is. Yeah. They have a lot of money invested in the offense as it is. So I don't know that they're willing to, they need to kind of save the money, that keep their powder dry at this point and wait until after the season starts to kind of potentially sign some veterans at spots that they actually need.
And then on top of that, their offensive line, I think at certain spots is already getting a little bit older with Tyron Smith and Zach Martin. Probably you don't really want to be taking a chance on a 32-year-old guard coming off multiple ankle surgeries. I do think some team is going to sign DeCastro if he wants to play. I think that's another problem here is there's been some whispers that, he's fine with the way his career has played out so far. And he could retire. He's a Stanford kid. He's really smart. He can go do a million other things. But we'll keep an eye on David DeCastro and see what's going to happen. Let's take a quick break so I can tell you guys about BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action. Baseball season is in full swing, and you can track all the action on BetOnline. Before the next pitch, head over to BetOnline on your laptop or mobile device and check out all the great sporting news, sign-up bonuses, and contest information. Don't sit on the sidelines anymore, as this is your chance to get into the game as teams prep for the runs to the playoffs. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, Landon, this is a really, really interesting question regarding Michael Gallup. If the cost is the same, would you rather sign Michael Gallup or Randy Gregory to a contract extension? Because my guess is their money probably will be similar.
Yeah. Man, that's really tough because I think that they're different ages, they're different positions. Obviously, there's different positional value there. I'm kind of the mind. I think a lot of it's going to depend on how they're playing at the time of the contract gets signed, right? Like how they look in the early part of the season. If Randy Gregory comes out and shows kind of the promise that we kind of have anticipated based on, how he's played without any training camp, without any offseason. And if he's able to kind of take his game to another level because he's finally getting those opportunities, I could certainly see him being a worthwhile signing there. He's still kind of young. He plays a position that is difficult to find and develop, and he's kind of found and developed. I think the wide receiver has a lot of positional value in today's modern game. But I also think that, as we've started to kind of move along through the, I guess post 7-on-7 camp, post, passing camp world of high school football, I think wide receivers coming out of the college are way more adept at playing football, playing NFL football than they had been previously. So I think that this is all a long way of saying that I might think about Randy Gregory because I do think that you're able to kind of go out and get wide receivers in draft and find them pretty regularly at this point. It hasn't been just coincidence. I don't think that the last 3 drafts have been crazy deep at wide receiver. I just think that wide receiver is a lot less difficult position to find at this point. But this is also very difficult. This is also very difficult because Cooper's contract is expiring, so there's elements there. This is a very good question, is because there's a lot of different variables, and they don't quite line up so nicely that it's an easy conversation.
I think it's easy for me. It's Michael Gallup. He just turned 25 years old. He's almost, I think, 5 years younger than Randy Gregory. He's been, I think, more consistent, more productive. And I know Gregory's potential is ridiculously high, but I want to do everything I can to keep this offense performing at a top 2 or 3 level, because that's really the only chance this team has at having, sustained success, right? If this offense is just so good every year, I can find defensive guys to kind of fit together and run them for a year. I want as many talented guys that know Dak as possible. I love that Gallup can play on the outside. I love that they're moving him in the slot to get him some more reps. I just don't think it's all that close for me. But that's just me, and I value passing in offense more than anything else in football.
Yeah, and I totally understand that, and those are valid points. And I'm not. I think this is very difficult because I think that all that is right. I just think that not that Gallup is replicable, but I think that, with where the Cowboys are, it'd be a lot easier to find a third aspect of that passing, wide receiver trio than I think a solid pass rusher who could potentially be your best pass rusher next 2 or 3 years. All
right, next one. This is a fun one from Ryan. If you could add one Cowboy from the last 30 years to this team, who would you put on it?
Darren Woodson.
Don't we have enough linebackers?
Darren Woodson's not a linebacker. Dude,
he kind of was, though.
You know what? You're too young to even have this conversation.
No. I'm kind of kidding, but I think Darren Woodson in today's NFL plays linebacker, right? But in the 90s, I don't
think so.
You don't think so? He's 230 pounds.
Look, he was 230 pounds, but look how he played with Roy Williams. He was the topper safety. He was the guy covering guys in the slot. Look. You're right. He was 230 pounds. He was a freak of nature. People talk about Sean Taylor.
Yeah.
What?
He could cover the slot if you needed him to.
People talk about Sean Taylor being a freak of nature athletically, but they don't talk about Darren Woodson enough in that way. And I think there's a reason that he was so good. He could do anything. That's why I think
I love Darren Woodson. That's a great answer, but it's it would probably be a linebacker in today's NFL.
He's not a linebacker. Come on, get out of here. Nonsense.
Larry Allen. Put him at left guard, have Tyron and Larry Allen playing next to each other. Running the ball actually might be good then. Like, I would probably
you're just naming the best players of the last 30 years as opposed to who would be the best fit.
I'm saying you put Larry Allen on this team at left guard, and that's a lot of fun.
That's probably true.
That's really good. All right, next question. This one's from Mark. What differences and things are you going to be looking for at training camp this year under Mike McCarthy's first real camp? Because I don't even know if we can consider last year one. What are you looking forward to see, Landon?
That's a good question. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately, honestly, is, kind of going back to what made a Jason Garrett training camp. And frankly, for me, I've only ever been to Jason Garrett training camps. Yeah. So, I think for me, I'm going to be paying attention to the pace, the quickness that they get from station to station, how practice is arranged. Are they doing special teams in the morning? Are they doing kind of, I know that they'll be doing daily installs as they go, but like, is there a kind of a in-week schedule for how they're doing it? Like, is Tuesday red zone days? Is Wednesdays, between the 20s? How are practices being laid out? What's the tempo? How does the team react? What are the one-on-ones like? How often are they doing one-on-ones? This is all feels like minutia, but it's stuff to kind of get used to. Personally for me, just to get used to, so that I can kind of get a feel of where I need to be during a training camp practice to get the information I want. But also,
I think first non-Rod Marinelli training camp in how long?
Non-Rod Marinelli training camp. It's
been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It's what is it, like 2000?
It came in 2013, right?
14, yeah. So it is a long time. So, I mean, just on the defensive side of the ball, on the offensive side of the ball, how does special teams fit into all of practice? Is it a kind of a constant thing? Do they do it early in the morning?
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. Competitive periods, how often are they having them? What do they look like? Garrett used to like to call players out and kind of have an in-game, kind of not in-game, but like a competition period where he would say, "Hey, give me 94 and a 77. Let's see what happens." And I like that, and I think that was effective. So it'll be interesting to see if McCarthy does stuff like that. I think there's lots of things to kind of pay attention to how the practices are structured, just to kind of determine what's important to this coach as opposed to what was important to Jason Garrett.
I think you mentioned it at the top, the pace. I want to see, how fast they're moving and how quickly they get in and out of drills, because I think there's other times where some of these practices felt more like walkthroughs, right? And the energy was kind of low. I want to see the pace pick up. I want to see the energy at practices with Dan Quinn, with Mike McCarthy. That's what I'm really, really interested in seeing. All right, this next one, Landon, from Josh. If the Cowboys stay relatively healthy this season, how do they not win the division? So I'm going to turn this question around like this. What would need to have happened if the Cowboys do stay healthy and not win the division?
Well, I think, if the Cowboys are healthy and we're trying to figure out a scenario in which they are healthy and they lose the division, right? Maybe a situation, it'd have to be kind of a combination of things, I think, where Washington is as good or better than we expect them to be.
That's one of the biggest. Somebody makes a big leap that we don't anticipate.
I actually think it has to be two teams. I think that if New York was like better than we anticipated, or at least better defensively, they're good. They're going to be good defensively. But if they're really great defensively and Dallas struggles to maybe they split one of those games where Washington can win one of those games. And then Washington is just a very good team and is able to kind of get Dallas's numbers. That could be a way that happens, just because I don't have any faith in Washington's offense, just like I'm sure they don't have any faith in our defense. But I think that, Cowboys offense is a more stable, reliable thing than to rely on any defense, frankly.
Yeah.
So
yep.
If something were to happen where the Cowboys offense were out of sync, or the Washington defense is, historically good, right? Which is certainly not outside the realm of possibility. They have a lot of really great talent.
They got a lot of talent.
So something like that, and like I said, New York stealing a game or two from us because their defense just is that good, and the Cowboys struggle to move the ball and can't stop a cold.
I also think it would have to be a lot of these like second and third year guys not stepping up, right? Like Trevon Diggs having a sophomore slump, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe Donovan Wilson doesn't take the leap that we're hoping. Maybe Micah Parsons is just too raw and he had too much time off since the last time he played. You'd have to have a lot of those kind of things happen to make the defense so bad that even as good as the offense is, it's just not good enough. I think that's your concern, is that the defense just isn't talented enough to be average or even slightly below average.
I absolutely agree.
All right, let's take one more quick break so I can tell you guys about Built Bar, the absolute best tasting protein bar out there. It's hard to even explain it. Real chocolate with amazing flavors. It's just a great combination of low calories, high protein, and low sugar with no crazy additives. Best of all, they taste absolutely fantastic. Go to BuiltBar.com and use promo code LOCKEDON and you'll get $10 off your next box. Again, that is BuiltBar.com. All right, a couple rapid fire questions for you, Landon, to head out the show. This one from John. Who will be the starting defensive tackles in week 1?
Oh, man, that'll be tough. I think Bohanna and probably Gallimore.
Really?
Yeah. What do you think? Watkins, maybe?
I'll say Urban and Gallimore.
See, I'm starting to get the anticipation, the feeling that Urban is going to end up playing more base end than he is inside.
Maybe. That's possible. I could see that. Bohanna as a 6th rounder starting, that would be a little surprising.
You're not asking a Bohanna to do much more than be a plug in the middle of the defensive line. I don't really know that that's a difficult thing to ask a rookie.
Okay, and that's fine. I'm hoping Bohanna makes the roster. That's where I'm at right now, because I just don't know that you can ever trust a 6th rounder to make the roster and come in and start. But we shall see. That's why I can't wait for training camp.
I will say this: they drafted him and then cut Antoine Woods, so that kind of gives you a good anticipation of if he's going to make the team at least, right?
That's true. Next one. This one comes from Zach. Could CeeDee Lamb have a 1,500-yard receiving season this year? He would need to average, coincidentally, 88 yards per game, and it doesn't feel all that unreal. Could he do it?
Yes, he could, especially if there was an injury, especially if like Gallup or Cooper misses, 3 or 4 games and they decide to lean heavily on him. I absolutely think he's capable of doing that. Look, we're going to see exactly what we have in CeeDee Lamb, but I think that a fully formed CeeDee Lamb is on tier with DeAndre Hopkins, or at least that's what we should. That's kind of player that I think we should not anticipate, but hope for. I think that's a realistic hope that CeeDee Lamb can be that type of player in the league.
CeeDee Lamb in the first 5 games of last season averaged 89 yards per game in the first 5 games with Dak. He was on pace to do it last year. So keeps up that pace. I think he'll do it. One more quick question, Landon. This one is a really good one from Nick, and it's probably too long of a question to get a deep answer into, but do you think the defense will actually improve just based on scheme change, or do you think they're going to improve because of the talent?
I think we need to stop separating these two, because I think that's problematic at times. I think scheme and talent, reveals talent, in my opinion. I think all players, NFL players, have talent of some sort. You have to arrange them in a way that all their talents work together, and that's what scheme is, right? So yeah, you can have a great scheme, but if you don't have the talent to kind of do anything with it, you're not availing anybody of any skills, right?
Yeah.
So I think that there's been talent on this roster, with some of these guys that are problematic players last year are talented players, but they haven't really, whether it's they didn't get the defense, they had injuries, they didn't play well. That's remains to be seen. I think that they added some talent. They are hoping that some previous talent will kind of be able to rear its head a little bit with the change to a scheme that allows them to kind of, again, use what they do best instead of trying to kind of work left-handed with something that they're not familiar with. So you're right. It's a long question. But I think that the hope is that a scheme change will kind of bring some of the talent that seemingly was missed from several players across this defense last year back into the light.
Well, and here's the thing is we've seen a lot of these players basically in the same scheme before, right? In 2018 and 2019, what they were running under Rod Marinelli and Chris Richard isn't all that different than what Dan Quinn's going to run, correct?
No. I mean, I think the things that we'll see that are different are, it's kind of almost a combination of the last two defenses, right? Where I think Dan Quinn will probably try to, steal a gap here or two with some 2-gap players, and that hopefully drop an extra person into coverage, which can help, give a little bit better results on the back end. I think that the difference is that the previous, the Marinelli system was too simple and straightforward for its own good. I mean, you have to find a way to disguise it or to mix things up so the offense doesn't know exactly what you're doing, or it doesn't really matter how talented you are. And then, last year things were so complicated and they didn't get any kind of training camp. Yeah. They just didn't even learn how to play the defense. So, that obviously made things worse. I think if they can find a way to become a little bit more game plan specific defense, not give away the game before the snap, then I think, but still going back to kind of a defense that's based on them playing fast and not having to overthink, what their assignments are. I think you're going to see some of this talent kind of come back to the surface. All
right. So really quickly before we head out, what is the number of points per game the Cowboys should be aiming to try to allow on defense? Because last year it was not great. Is it 24? Is it 23? What are you hoping this defense kind of finishes around? Because last year, I'm looking up right now, 29.6. That's too many. Less than that, correct?
Yeah. 23, 24 is, I think, kind of the number that popped in my head when you asked immediately. So I think that's probably, a reasonable goal. And really, just if they can kind of continue the turnover pace that they had at different points last year, while reducing the overall number of points by like I said, 4 or 5 points a game, that's going to be really a game changer. I think that it doesn't sound like a lot, but that could make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I mean, if they finish at 23, 24 points a game, you're probably looking at a top 12, 13 defense. We'll take that. I'll even take 25, 26 because I think this offense is going to consistently score 28, 29 points a game. Just getting in that range should be just a significant improvement for the Cowboys. So that is it for today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in. You can continue to listen to the show. Download us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Continue to support us on YouTube. You can follow Landon at McCoolBCB. You can follow the show at Locked On Cowboys, and I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you next time.